In our design of the CocoaSwiftPlayer application, we have this main window of the player app and also a status bar app on the top right side. As you can see, we have created the application, mainly the feature-wise of the application on the our current Xcode project. Next, we are going to create this menu bar, actually the status bar application as part of the whole application. And as you look more in detail about the status bar, it mainly shows the player control of the same application right at the top here. What we are going to do is basically copy some of the components here, maybe reusing some of the code as well in order to make this work. And also the player between these two parts should be able to sync. Say when I switch song, they change the song name at the same time and they show the progress of the songs being playing as well. Let's start with it. Actually, we have a status bar tutorial in my tutorial series day 7 and 8. For more information, you could take a look on that as well. And here we'll be making use of the materials from there. First, in the app.getGame method, I have created several variable. Popover will be used to show the view controller over here, especially if the triangle here, it is an indicator of NS popover. The status item will be representing the item being shown in the status bar. The event monitor will be used to dismiss the view controller when it is on a showing state. I can click anywhere outside this view to dismiss this status bar. I will start with some coding in the application finish launching method. First of all, I'm going to set the attributes for status item in order to show that item on the top right side of the status bar. I'll set the title to empty and set the image button to show the icon like these icons here. Get the button from the status item and then set the image of the status item. With an image I'm going to add into this project. Go to the Access folder and find the image we prepared before in my tutorial series. I'm going to drag this star into here. Within the star setting, go to the right side for the attribute inspector. Make sure you check Mac instead of Universal, and then drag this image back to the 2x area, as my file itself is a 2x file. Now this image is available to the Mac application. I can come back here and then take the image using the name we set up in the access like this. Then I'm going to set up the action by clicking this image. I set up as a selector, and it will call the function I defined down there. I have added several helper here. Toggle will be checking the shown status of the popover and close or show the popover accordingly. And these implement the corresponding features of showing and closing the popover. You could find more details in my tutorial series in the early days about the NSStatusBar and the NSStatusBar item event monitoring. So I'm going to call the selector of toggle popover. Make sure you have the colon here as I'm passing in the parameter sender here. If I run the application now, I should be able to see the star image showing on the top right side at the status bar area. So this is the star I just add. But if I click on this, it may cause error as I didn't set the content view controller for the popover. So here I'm going to set this. This defines the content being shown in the popover. It sets the view through a view controller, which is nice because we can get the benefit of the view controller lifecycle method. And I'm going to define a new view controller for this purpose. In the view controllers group, create a new group and call it perhaps status item view controller, and then create a new class of status item view controller, which is a subclass of NSEventMonitor. I don't need to create the zip file because I'm going to reuse the main.storyboard. Save it into the corresponding folder. In here, I add my utility function, the load for loop. Actually, I just create this CocoaSwiftPlayer in my own library. You could create anything as you like by just highlighting the content you want to create and drag to the CocoaSwiftPlayer library. Here comes with the snippet, and then you can rename it. In my case, as I always set this load for loop function as a way to get the corresponding storyboard component, so I just add this part into the CocoaSwiftPlayer. But this is not fully implemented, as in this case, I'm calling the view controller as status item view controller. This is the object I want to return, and I want this to be within this object's class type. I will set this as the identifier in the storyboard, and in this case, I'm going to put it inside the main.storyboard. So now, go to main.storyboard. Right next to the main window controller in the empty area, I'm going to drag a view controller to it. This has no linkage with the other view controller. I will only get this component through the use of this instantiate method. Thus, I need to make sure I have set the name, the class of this view controller to be status item view controller, and also set the storyboard ID here in order to reference it through the identifier here. So it should be actually status item view controller as the identifier, and main as the storyboard here. So I make a mistake. But in terms of programming, we always make small mistakes. It's okay. Just find your way earlier to correct the mistakes, and that's okay. Right in this, I just temporarily put a label for demonstration purpose and save this wheel controller. Now go back to app delegate, use this status item wheel controller .noFromLib function to get the wheel controller and then set it to the popover.content wheel controller. Now when I run the application again and then click on the status bar item, it will be able to show the storyboard and the wheel controller we have just set. As I mentioned, I want to click somewhere else to dismiss this wheel controller. That's why we have this EventMonitor in place, and now is the time to implement it. We'll set the EventMonitor to an object of EventMonitor with the mask here, taking in the left mouse down mask and the right mouse down mask. That means either clicking the left mouse click or right mouse click will trigger this EventMonitor. And the handler here, pass in the event object. What I will do is to check whether popover is shown. In such case, I will close the popover and just pass the event object as the sender to this close popover method. Now if I click outside this popover, it will dismiss. Great. It's time to make a commit to our current code. Good. And then now we are going to implement the details of this wheel controller. As mentioned, it looks much like the player control here, with all the components we want. So one simple way would be just copy all these, including the custom wheel we added before, to this wheel controller we just created. Make sure it's under this wheel as a subwheel. For instance, let me take it as a full screen so it's easier to manage. I will set the auto layout for now. Now I have all the controls, and likely we can even reuse the class of the player wheel controller as well. Let's take a look. Here we have all the IBOutlets to each of the control here, and then we have several IBActions which we add to the click on these buttons. We will be displaying the time label, the song name, etc. So pretty much everything can be reused. How about we just set this wheel controller to the class of player wheel controller. However, it may be a bit messy since they are actually using different storyboard. And also I will be relay out the control here in the new wheel controller. So in this case, I really want to keep the name of status item wheel controller. So how about we go the other route? We just take a subclass of player wheel controller. Now we can use the name of status item wheel controller, and at the same time get all the behavior from player wheel controller. Of course, in such a change, we need to reconnect every component in the new wheel controller to those properties of player wheel controller. In order to do that, we go to this wheel controller, find each component here, and then on the right side of the assistant editor, show the player wheel controller. And then we will really connect all these IBOutlet and IBAction back to these controls one by one. Say the play button to the play button, rewind to rewind, next to next. To have a better view of what's happening, we can build the connection here. And then for the volume slider, to the slider, and so forth. We need to do this to the action as well. You can see it changes from player control, which is the original name, to the status bar wheel controller. Let's take a look again for the rewind IBAction. And the next as well. It reflects the change so that our current wheel controller really connects to the IBAction defined in status bar wheel controller, which is indeed a subclass of this player wheel controller. So you need to make sure you are connecting to the right class, otherwise the IBAction there will become malfunction. Don't just look at the reference, even it is showing it links up to the repeat button already, but actually the current repeat button is linking to the original player control IBAction, not the current status bar wheel controller IBAction. Alright, I think you already understand the relationship, and we have connected all the IBOutlet and IBActions here. Let's run the application and take a look. So now if I show the popover and then start playing here, you can see clicks here, or clicks in the main application, it syncs the content, which is good. But lastly, we want to relay out a little bit on the wheel according to our design, like this. So we simply drag these items to the corresponding area. As the layout takes so much time, I have just set this up, and then this is what it looks like as a result. I'm going to run the application now. And this is the layout, what we want. Great, that's it for today.